Welcome to today's webinar. I'm saying that because I'm recording today and I want to have that on the recording. What I'm going to do in this short webinar is give you a really good sense of how Unit 2 is structured and what I'm looking for from you for your work for this unit. And I'm really hoping that you'll ask questions along the way in case some of the content is causing you confusion. So it's always good to start looking at a unit by reading over this list at the beginning. And you might not realize this, but I'm giving you hints about what I'm going to be marking you on in this list. Right off the bat, this is about drawing and graphic design. You're going to have two different major assignments. And then I've got this statement: understand the use of the elements of line, pattern, shape, and texture in executing a design. That's a big hint to you about what I'll be looking for in that graphic story. So not only will I be looking for some sort of storyline and imagery, but I'll be trying to see if you really experimented with different kinds of pattern or mark making, or maybe some mixed media that gives you different kinds of effects in the drawing. I'll point this out a little more along the way as we look at the assignment. Used a variety of compositional strategies. That means that I want your design for your story especially to be considered. And then there's going to be some looking at some different arts throughout history, and there's going to be some online exploration. And that's mostly focused in this first written assignment, which is to watch 3 videos. And these 3 videos at first glance, when you watch them, might not seem related. But I'll let you in on a secret. Well, I guess it's not a secret if I tell you, but I'm trying to get you to look at the practice of drawing throughout history. And that's kind of where these 3 videos are leading you. Not just drawing, but also graphic design. So your assignment is to look at each of the 3 videos and then write a short paragraph that kind of compares or contrasts the videos or finds a common theme, like drawing. But basically a way of showing that you've looked at the content and understand the content and are somehow relating the 3 videos to each other. So that's your first short paragraph assignment in this unit. One question I get asked about this written assignment is, do you have to cite your sources? You don't have to repeat the sources that you watch the 3 videos from because they're embedded in the assignment. If you use any secondary sources, like if you decide you want to do a little extra research for this paragraph, then you should include those sources in your assignment. Okay, so the first major assignment in Unit 2 is some really basic drawing exercises. And this is one of those exercises where there's a video. And when we click on the video, it's long. It's 10 minutes. And what did I tell you guys in the intro webinar? That if a video is long, it's kind of going to be a how-to video. So if it was me, I would pause this video, read over the written version of this assignment, get together my materials from this materials area, and then start to work as I watch the video. This is a series of 7 drawing assignments that are very typical. If you might have done these drawing exercises in high school, you might have done them in elementary school, you might have taken another university class that used these basic approach to drawing. And again, all 7 are listed here in the written version of the assignment. If you want to do multiple versions of them, you can, because they're quick. Especially the first group of 3. Those are drawings that you want to do in kind of under 3 minutes. You'll see in the description of this assignment, where is it? I say that 2 to 5 minutes to do these projects. When you get to the lower list, to the crosshatch and pointillism, it really depends on your working speed. To fully develop the still life, you might have to go a little bit longer on those 2 versions of the assignment. So these are being done on larger pieces of paper, like newsprint pad or a drawing pad. You can work in pencil and in mixed media. So for example, on this list, I have pencil, lumber crayon or graphite stick, which is just a thicker drawing stick. Maybe black art pen, which could be just your rollerball gel pen that you have at home. And then optional, Conte, compressed charcoal, vine charcoal, any drawing materials, if you happen to have them around, you can play with in this assignment. If I was going to pick a second kind of drawing material to buy for this assignment, I've got the pencil and then I've got this graphite stick, because graphite stick allows you to kind of do bigger, broader, wider tone, which is kind of why I listed it as one you could buy. But if you want to trade that for one of the optional, like vine charcoal or compressed charcoal, they're just going to give you a different quality of tone. Why am I talking about this? Because these might be things that you then apply to your graphic story. So the whole idea behind you doing these 7 exercises is really as a warm-up to how to think about different kinds of line and drawing that you can use for your graphic story. So at the end of this assignment, you're going to pick one of each of these. Maybe you only did one of each kind of drawing. That's acceptable. If you want to do a few more, you can pick what you think is your best. You're going to post 7 pictures of those 7 drawings on the blog, and that's what I'll be giving you your initial mark on for assignment 3. So does that make sense to everybody?
So what I understand is that we're going to be using one of these lines. So let's say like we take basic contour. So we're going to be using that to make a proper picture of a still life.
Yes. And if you watch the video, I literally, I don't want to watch the whole thing with you, but I can kind of drag through. I'll literally show you how to set up the still life, and then I'll actually show you an example of each style of drawing. So if you don't really understand what a contour drawing is, or what a searching line drawing is, or here's broken line, I'm literally going to show you step by step an example of how it should look. So that should be really helpful if these are terms that you haven't heard before. And as you work your way through, especially some people find the last 2 exercises, the crosshatch. Notice how I speeded myself up. You shouldn't be working this fast. This is about the regular speed that I'm working at. I just sped up parts of this video so that you wouldn't have to watch me do an entire drawing. But this should really give you an idea of how these drawings are made. Okay, so that's the first major assignment in this unit. Assignment 4 is the second assignment, and it's the one that's worth 15% of your final mark. And that shows in how it's structured. I actually want you to do some prep work for this assignment. So when you read through what's required by this assignment, let's say we just skipped to the bottom, you'll notice that you should be posting preliminary, so submission methods, post photos of your preliminary drawings first, then submit 1 or more photos of your completed drawing by the due date. So my goal or wish for you for this assignment is that you do some planning for your graphic story, post that. If you post it at least 24 to 48 hours before the due date, I'll give you feedback that should help you with your completed graphic story. Then you're going to post your completed graphic story. So sometimes people run out of time and they put up their preliminary drawings like the day that the assignment is due. That's acceptable, but if you really want to get the benefit of feedback, early posting is wise. So how are you going to do this project? Well, again, there's sort of a written overview of how this project works. I've given you a little bit of research to do to get your brains thinking about how you might approach it. I'm showing you some classic approaches to comics. And I don't want you to like read this like really intensely. This is just a little spot for you to go to and start thinking about ideas of how, what are graphic stories, what are comic strips. The second one is, I think, very useful because it talks about the 10 principles of comic book design, and that might give you some ideas of how you can think about creating your own graphic story. So I kind of want you to just look through these references, and then This video is super useful because it literally gives you planning a graphic story. I'm going to turn off the audio and I'm going to put it up. It gives you some step-by-step ideas of how you can go about planning the story. It shows you examples of other students' preliminary drawings that they've done. And then it also shows you examples of the stories that came out of those preliminary drawings. So this is a really good way of getting a handle on some of the expectations behind this assignment. And it also shows you some different formats. So this format that this student did, this is their preliminary drawing, and it's very loose. It doesn't have traditional framing. It has overlapping storyline, and this was their finished story. So you can be creative in how you approach the structure or composition of your story, or you can be quite traditional, like those comic strip examples that were in those little history sections that I had you researching. So this video is going to give you some really solid, concrete examples of how you could approach this project and what other students have done in the past. And notice the examples I'm showing you all use a mixture of pattern, mark making, tone. So those are the things that I'm looking for. Remember back to that very beginning of the unit when I listed things you should be thinking about. And then I give you some actual professional cartoons just to give you some thoughts about viewpoint. Shifting viewpoint could be an approach to composition. More abstract framing where the frames are different sizes, for example. So not all your frames need to be exactly like a comic strip in a paper. Bold use of setting, for example. We're not using color, but I put this in because of the use of text mixed with imagery, which is something that you can really think about in this graphic story assignment. So we're almost at the end there, but I'm going to close this down. So well worth watching that video and listening to it. And then I have another short video here where I show you my planning process, because in this course, I made myself do all the projects so that I would know what it would be like for you, and also to give you some guidance in how to approach the assignment. So that's another video sort of looking at planning. And then again, I have this written description that if you want to try to come up with your own story, because if we go right back up to the beginning of this assignment, you'll see that, oh, sorry, I'm looking for where. Okay, design a short graphic story. The story may be a revision of a fairy tale. So you can use a classic story and retell it in a graphic format. It could be a personal story, experience, an invented story, a dream. So if you want to come up with your own story, I've given you the classic points of story development. And I was saying this to somebody at the first webinar. If you think back to when you were studying plays and theater, even in elementary school, I remember we had a unit where you had to think about identifying characters, plot, setting, time of day. All those things are useful things for thinking about how to organize your graphic story. And one of the really good questions I had at the first webinar was, well, I've got an idea for 2 or 3 or 4 different stories. How do I pick which one to do? And what I would do for a starting point for this assignment is write down a story idea just in a sentence, and then think about all the graphic things that go with that story. So is it a story that has an interesting setting that's going to give me something interesting to draw, or something that I can draw? You don't want to set yourself up for trying to do something so complicated that you're overwhelmed. What's the time of day in the story? Is that going to be an interesting element to draw? Darkness or lightness? Who are my characters? What do they look like? How many of them are there? Would it be better to have a story with only 2 characters or 3 characters, or do I want a story with 20 characters? It depends on my ability to draw those characters. And the characters themselves can be simple. You can use stick people approach to characters. It's just making it, the overall composition, look interesting and having the storyline make sense. So I just threw a whole bunch of different things at you. Does anybody have some questions about this project?
So I see that there's use a full sheet of Stonehenge or Arches white paper. What kind of paper is that?
It's an art drawing paper. So one piece of good quality white drawing paper is how it's described under the equipment and materials. So it's a paper that is a little bit stronger, a little bit better made, so that if you want to do erasing or if you want to lay down light pencil to mark out your story and then you're going to erase parts out of it, this paper can handle that. You can find it at the Campus Art Store. You can find it at Michael's. You can find it at Gales Wholesale. Those are places in Regina. If you're having trouble finding it, you can replace it with poster board, which is available, or Bristol board it's sometimes called, which is available at any dollar store. It's not going to be quite as nice to work on. It's not going to be quite as forgiving, but you want to make sure that you're working within the most important thing, a decent size, because I'm challenging you to create a graphic story that will fit into this large format paper, which is a much kind of more challenging design thing than if you were trying to make a comic strip that fit on an 8.5 by 11 piece of typewriter paper. So the key is the size. Does that help, Sam?
Yes, it does. And so the size that's on there is 20 inches by 25 inches to 22 to 30?
22 by 30 is the standard drawing paper size. And then you'll see down here, I said, try to keep it approximately 20 by 25 to 22 by 30. If you can't find the poster board paper, I believe is 19 inches by something like 22. So if you're in that sort of size range, you're fine. If you're worried about it, drop me a note and I'll tell you whether it's an acceptable size.
Okay, sounds good.
Excellent. And you'll notice under the written description, I'm asking you to create 10 to 20 frames. If you're going to do a more looser format, you still want to think about having sort of 10 to 20 areas of activity. So that Hansel and Gretel story that you can see in the sample video, you'll notice that he's got overlapping content with characters that end up being approximately sort of 12 areas that he's working in. And I really do encourage you to make your plans. That can be done with a written notes. It can be done with little sketches. But what really is helpful is to take something like a piece of your newsprint that's very similar in size to your finished story and lay out how the story is going to visually be presented on that page. And that will make starting the finished story much easier. And again, I'll be looking for your use of line, shape, and pattern when you are creating your composition. So think back to those drawing exercises that I had you do, and that's going to be a source of inspiration for you for thinking about how you can create different kinds of line. Again, to complete the unit, you're going to have posted assignment 3, which is the 7 drawings. Then you're going to have posted a couple of your preliminary drawings for your graphic story, and then your completed graphic story. And it says here under submission methods that if you feel you need some extra photos, some detail shots to really share what your story is, please add those into your post. If you create a really complex story, I'll be able to view it more easily and mark it more easily if you also give me some detailed shots of the different sections. So that kind of covers the 2 major assignments of the unit and the written assignment. Do you guys have any other questions for me? And if you're feeling really unsure about your preliminary drawings, I have had people in the past send me a quick note by email just with their story idea saying, am I on the right track? Does this sound like it's a good plan? And so I will respond to those kinds of requests as well as your posting on the blog site. Anyhow, I really hope you have fun with this assignment. It's your chance to explore telling stories in a visual way, and really also a chance to have some fun with some different materials in a way that's limited to black and white, which kind of makes it, on the one hand, challenging, but on the other hand, that limitation means that you really get to explore what you can do with pencil and pen and a little charcoal.